The scent of oil and gasoline was David's perfume, a smell he knew well from countless hours spent in his small home garage. At 35, his hands were always a little grimy, but they were also incredibly skilled. He could fix anything with an engine, and often, even things that didn't have one. His greatest joy, though, wasn't found under a hood, but by his side. That was Lily, his spirited 8-year-old daughter. Her bright eyes sparkled as she handed him a wrench, her small fingers surprisingly steady. "Is this the right one, Dad?" she'd ask, her voice a sweet melody. David would nod, a proud smile crinkling the corners of his eyes. Lily loved to help in the garage, even if her help mostly involved sorting nuts and bolts into colorful cups. They were a team, a dynamic duo of grease and giggles. Lately, David had been spending extra time on a special project tucked away in a corner. It was a contraption of wires, gears, and salvage parts, an invention he'd been tinkering with for months. It wasn't fancy, but he believed it was clever, a simple solution to a complex problem he'd seen in many cars. He kept it hidden under a tarp, a secret he was eager to share, hoping it might just be their ticket to something bigger, something better. One sunny afternoon, a crisp, official-looking envelope arrived in David's mailbox. It fell out of place among the usual bills and flyers. Inside, a formal invitation shimmered, printed on thick paper. It was from Automotive Innovations Incorporated, a name whispered with awe in the car world. They were hosting a major industry pitch, and, to David's utter shock, he was invited. His heart did a little jump. Why him? He was just a local mechanic. Still, a spark of excitement lit up inside him. This wasn't just a meeting. It was a chance, a tiny window to a different life. He thought of Lily, her bright smile, her dreams of a new bike. This could be for her, a stepping stone to a future with fewer worries and more possibilities. David felt a mix of nerves and hope as he looked at his invention. It was simple, almost humble, but he knew its worth. He carefully wrapped it in an old but clean cloth, placing it gently into a sturdy toolbox. It wasn't much to look at, just a few gears and sensors connected by sturdy wires, but in his mind, it held all their hopes. He practiced explaining it, refining his words until they were clear and confident. This was his big shot, and he was ready to make it count. Lily's happy face was all the courage he needed. The day of the pitch arrived, and David, with his trusty toolbox in hand, found himself standing before a towering glass building. It gleamed in the morning sun, a stark contrast to his cozy, oil-stained garage. Inside, everything was sleek and modern, all polished chrome and hushed voices. He felt a pang of awkwardness in his best, but still simple button-up shirt and jeans. Around him, men and women in sharp suits and elegant dresses moved with an air of importance. They looked like they belonged, and he felt like a misplaced wrench. As he navigated the polished hallways, a woman his age caught his eye. She had striking dark hair, pulled back neatly, and wore a perfectly tailored business suit. This was Sarah, he guessed, from a name tag pinned to her lapel. Her eyes, a beautiful shade of hazel, met his for a moment. She offered a small, polite smile, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. Instead, there was a fleeting look of assessment, then a subtle turn of her head as she moved past him. It was a kind dismissal, a gentle way of saying, "You're not quite in my world." David felt a little blush creep up his neck, but he squared his shoulders. He was here for Lily, and that thought made him feel taller. The presentation room was grand, filled with soft lighting and a giant screen. David found a seat at the back, his toolbox resting quietly beside him. A team of confident executives, including Sarah, took the stage. They began to unveil their newest creation, an ultra-adaptive, multi-sensory vehicular interface. The words were big and impressive, sounding like something out of a futuristic movie. They showed sleek slides and dazzling videos of their advanced car system. It promised to be faster, smarter, and safer than anything before. The executive spoke of quantum computing and neural networks, terms that flew over the heads of many in the audience. David, however, listened with a different kind of ear. He didn't understand all the fancy words, but he understood how cars worked. He knew what made an engine hum and what could make it fail. As they explained a particular part of their system, a knot formed in David's stomach. He leaned forward, squinting at a diagram on the screen. There it was. A critical piece of the design, meant to manage complex data flow, looked fine on paper, but in the real world, under everyday stress, it wouldn't hold up. It was a fundamental flaw, a tiny crack in their shining new armor. He saw it plain as day, a problem that even the fanciest words couldn't hide. During a short break, David decided he couldn't keep quiet. He took a deep breath and walked towards the group of executives, including Sarah, who were chatting near the demonstration car. He waited for a polite pause, then spoke up. "Excuse me, I noticed something about the data flow management system. It looks like it might struggle with sudden surges in real-world driving conditions." One of the executives, a man with a sharp suit and an even sharper sneer, raised an eyebrow. "Our ultra-adaptive, multi-sensory vehicular interface has been rigorously tested, my good man," he said, a patronizing tone in his voice. "Perhaps you're not familiar with the intricacies of advanced quantum computing algorithms." Sarah, who was standing nearby, offered a small, tight smile. "We appreciate your observation," she said, her voice smooth but cool. "But our technology is quite sophisticated. It's designed to handle far more than what a traditional mechanic might encounter." The other executives chuckled softly, their laughter making David feel small. They dismissed his simple thoughts, making it clear they believed he couldn't possibly understand their complex world. David felt a flush of embarrassment, but the knot in his stomach tightened. He knew what he saw. The presentation resumed, and the executives, brimming with confidence, moved to the live demonstration. A shiny prototype car sat on a rotating platform, ready to showcase its flawless technology. The head executive pressed a button, and a calm, computer voice announced, "Initiating adaptive driving sequence." Lights blinked, screens glowed, and for a moment, it seemed to be working perfectly. Then, the car started to glitch. The sleek, futuristic dashboard flickered wildly. The computer voice began to stutter, repeating the same words over and over. "Error. Error. Data overload. Data overload." The car's wheels, which were supposed to move smoothly, jerked and spun erratically. The entire system seemed to be short-circuiting, making strange whirring and grinding noises. A wave of confusion, then alarm, swept through the room. The executives on stage froze, their confident smiles melting into looks of pure horror. Sarah's eyes widened, her face paling as she watched their grand display unravel. The very problem David had tried to warn them about, the inability to handle a sudden surge in data, was happening right before everyone's eyes. Chaos erupted as the sophisticated technology failed spectacularly, causing deep embarrassment for the entire team. The air filled with gasps and murmurs, and David watched, a grim confirmation in his heart. The room buzzed with worried whispers. On stage, the executives who moments ago had been so poised were now a flurry of panicked activity. They huddled around the malfunctioning car, tapping at keyboards, frantically pushing buttons, and muttering into their headsets. Nothing worked. The car continued its jerky, sputtering performance, a mocking testament to their failed technology. Sarah, usually so composed, looked utterly distressed. Her perfect suit seemed to sag, and her brow was furrowed with deep worry. She tried to offer suggestions, but her voice was lost in the growing panic. The head executive, a stern man named Mr. Harrison, stood apart, his face a mask of utter defeat. He ran a hand over his bald head, his shoulders slumping. This was their big moment, the culmination of months, maybe years, of work and millions of dollars. Now, it was crumbling before his eyes. The silence that fell over the audience was heavy, thick with disappointment. Mr. Harrison looked out at the faces, seeing not just confusion, but also a growing sense of disbelief. He knew in that moment that their grand presentation was utterly ruined. The promises of a faster, smarter future had just short-circuited into a very public disaster. He let out a slow, heavy sigh, accepting the bitter taste of failure. The despair in the room was almost thick enough to touch. Mr. Harrison looked utterly lost, and the other executives were still frantically, uselessly, poking at their failed system. David watched them, his heart going out to their obvious distress, even after their earlier dismissal. He knew this problem, not from a textbook, but from years of grease under his fingernails. He had built something for exactly this kind of situation. Taking another deep breath, David quietly stood up from his seat at the back. He walked slowly, deliberately, towards a stage, his old toolbox clutched firmly in his hand. No one noticed him at first, too caught up in their own disaster. When he reached the edge of the stage, he gently placed his toolbox down. Then, with a soft click, he opened it. From inside, carefully wrapped in a cloth, he pulled out his invention. It wasn't flashy or made of expensive, gleaming parts. It was a humble collection of wires, a small circuit board, and a few cleverly placed sensors. But it was elegant in its simplicity, a device designed to reroute and balance data flow, precisely what their ultra-adaptive system couldn't do. It was the answer to their problem, a practical solution born from mechanics' real-world understanding. Seeing David with his strange device, the executives paused their frantic attempts, looking at him with a mix of confusion and irritation. Mr. Harrison, though, seemed to catch a flicker of desperate hope in David's steady gaze. "What is that?" he asked, his voice weary. David stepped onto the stage, his voice calm and clear. "It's a data flow regulator," he began, without any fancy jargon. "Your system is getting overloaded when too much information comes in at once. This little guy acts like a traffic cop, making sure the data moves smoothly without crashing the whole system." He pointed to a diagram on a small screen on his device, showing how it would connect. He then, with surprising ease, plugged his invention into a port on the malfunctioning prototype car. The executives watched, skeptical, as David adjusted a dial. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the flickering dashboard lights steadied. The erratic whirring stopped. The computer voice, no longer stuttering, calmly announced, "Data flow stabilized. Initiating adaptive driving sequence." The car's wheels began to turn smoothly, gracefully, as if nothing had ever been wrong. David's simple, handmade invention had solved the complex problem flawlessly. A collective gasp rippled through the room. A hush fell over the room, replacing the earlier murmurs of panic. The executives on stage, who had been so sure of their complex systems, now stared at David's small device, then at the perfectly functioning car with wide, disbelieving eyes. Their initial skepticism quickly melted away, replaced by a profound sense of shock. Mr. Harrison, the head executive, slowly approached the car, his earlier defeat vanishing as he examined the steady dashboard. He touched the smooth, rotating wheel, then looked at David's humble invention, a mixture of awe and wonder on his face. He exchanged glances with Sarah, whose own expression mirrored his surprise. It was hard to believe. Their multi-million-dollar, cutting-edge technology had crumbled, yet a simple, handmade gadget from a mechanic had fixed it in moments. The irony was palpable. The executives, who had once subtly mocked David's simple understanding, now saw the undeniable truth. His practical, real-world knowledge had trumped all their theoretical brilliance. Disbelief turned into genuine awe. A few of them even started to clap slowly, the sound growing as others joined in, acknowledging the quiet triumph of David's genius. As the applause for David slowly began, Sarah stood frozen for a moment, her hazel eyes fixed on him. The cool, polite dismissal she had given him earlier was completely gone, replaced by a whirlwind of emotions. First, there was shock, a clear surprise that this simple mechanic had done what her entire team couldn't. Then, a wave of admiration washed over her face. She saw not just a man who had fixed a car, but a true problem solver, someone with deep, practical wisdom. A faint blush touched her cheeks as she remembered her earlier, dismissive glance. How wrong she had been. Her gaze softened, a new warmth entering her eyes. It wasn't just respect she felt now, but something more, a flicker of genuine interest, a curiosity about the man who had so quietly saved their presentation. She saw past his simple clothes to the brilliance beneath. David met her gaze, and for a brief second, the room seemed to fade away. He saw the change in her eyes, the shift from polite indifference to something warm and open. It was a silent acknowledgement, a turning point. He felt a quiet sense of triumph, not just for his invention, but for being seen, truly seen, by someone he had initially felt so out of place with. The humiliation he'd felt earlier was completely erased by the light in her eyes. The applause died down, but the awe in the room remained. Mr. Harrison, the head executive, walked over to David, his expression now one of profound respect. The sternness was gone, replaced by a genuine warmth. He extended a hand, gripping David's with surprising firmness. "Mr. Miller, Mr. Harrison began, his voice clear and strong. What you've done here today is nothing short of brilliant. Our entire team, with all our resources and advanced degrees, couldn't solve a problem you pinpointed and fixed with a device from your toolbox." He paused, looking directly into David's eyes. "Your practical skill, your genius for real-world solutions. It's exactly what we need." Then came the offer that made David's heart pound. "I would like to formally offer you a significant role in Automotive Innovations Incorporated," Mr. Harrison announced, loud enough for everyone to hear. "We need someone with your insight, someone who truly understands the mechanics behind the theory. We want you to lead a new division, focused on practical innovation and problem solving. Think of the future, Mr. Miller. A future where your ideas can truly make a difference." The words echoed in the room, a testament to David's unexpected triumph. David stood there for a moment, the weight of Mr. Harrison's offer sinking in. A significant role at Automotive Innovations Incorporated. It wasn't just a job. It was a dream he hadn't even dared to dream. His mind raced, thinking of Lily. No more worrying about every single bill, no more making do. This was a chance to give her everything she deserved, a life full of security and opportunities. A wide smile spread across his face, a genuine, heartfelt smile that reached his eyes. "Mr. Harrison," David said, his voice filled with emotion, "I accept. Thank you." A surge of pride, warm and strong, swelled in his chest. He had come here, a simple mechanic, and turned a potential disaster into a moment of true triumph. But even more than pride, he felt a profound sense of relief. The burden of financial worries, the constant struggle to make ends meet, felt lighter, almost gone. He knew, with absolute certainty, that this was the beginning of a wonderful new chapter for him and Lily. The image of her bright, happy face filled his thoughts, and he knew he had made the right choice, not just for himself, but for their shared future. As the meeting began to break up, with executives still buzzing about the day's surprising turn, David found himself gathering his toolbox. Then, a familiar figure approached him. It was Sarah. She walked with a different stride now, her earlier stiffness replaced by a more relaxed posture. Her beautiful hazel eyes, no longer cool, met his with genuine warmth. "David," she began, her voice soft and sincere, "I wanted to apologize for earlier. I judged you unfairly." A faint blush colored her cheeks, showing her embarrassment. "We were so caught up in our own complex designs, we forgot the most important thing, practical application. Your insight was exactly what we needed, and we dismissed it." She offered a genuine, warm smile, a stark contrast to the polite, tight one from before. "What you did today was truly brilliant," she continued, her admiration clear. "You saved us from a complete disaster. Thank you." Her words were heartfelt, a complete reversal from her earlier attitude. David felt a quiet satisfaction. Her apology was sincere, and her praise felt earned. It was a good feeling, knowing his skill had not only been recognized, but had also changed someone's mind. Sarah's warm smile lingered as David nodded, accepting her apology and thanks. For a moment, their eyes met and held. It was more than just a professional exchange. There was a spark, a shared understanding that had been forged in the crucible of unexpected failure and quiet triumph. Her gaze was no longer just admiring, but carried a hint of curiosity, a gentle invitation. David felt it, a pleasant warmth spreading through him. He returned her smile, a little shyly, but with a newfound confidence. The awkwardness he'd felt in his simple clothes, the sting of being underestimated, all of it had faded into the background. He had stood firm, believed in his skill, and proven his worth. As Sarah finally turned to leave, David felt a quiet joy bubbling up inside him. He had walked into this sleek building feeling out of place, dismissed by those in power. He had faced humiliation, but he had also seized a chance to shine. Now he was walking out with a new job, a future for Lily, and the memory of a beautiful executive's eyes looking at him with respect, and something more. It was a victory far sweeter than he could have ever imagined.